Hey, y'all. Welcome to the Reckless Optimist podcast. My name is Megan. I'm a family nurse practitioner with a deep passion for mental health. On this show, we showcase guests who have shown tenacity, grit, mental strength, and who embody the word resilience. A quick disclaimer before we start. This show is not a substitute for mental diagnosis or treatment. We do recommend that if you're struggling with your own emotional well-being, you see a mental health provider. I'm so excited that you guys are here. Let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Today on the podcast, we have Alexandra, also known as Alex. I met her a few weeks ago. She was actually my wedding photographer. We just connected and she did the most amazing job on our pictures. And after our photo shoot, we started talking. I knew there was something I liked about her instantly. And we found out that we are both sober. So she is 7 years in recovery and she is an amazing person. We have a lot of similarities. We're both stubborn, driven, competitive, and a lot of commonalities in our story. And I know you guys are going to love this episode. So let's get into it. Hey, everyone. Help me welcome Alex to the podcast. Yay, we're so excited that you're here. So I met you a few weeks ago, found you because I was looking for a photographer, a studio model photographer to do me and my fiance's wedding pictures. And I gave you an assignment and you understood the assignment. You did an amazing job with our pictures.
Thank you so much. You guys were so much fun to have in the studio. I had a blast and I could not make final selections. I was going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth on so many of them because they're so good. So I can't wait for you to see the rest of them. They're so
I know.
good.
We were talking before we jumped on about how I already have one of them as my background on my phone. But so my vision was 1990s Vogue editorial, black and white, Calvin Klein. And they turned out so good. I'm so thankful to you. But after the shoot, we got to talking and I found out you were sober as well.
Yes.
Yes. So how many years sober are you?
I picked up 7 years on May 23rd. So 2018, I got sober.
Okay. Yay.
Yeah.
And we're so excited to hear your story. So before we do, we're going to read a quote. We start our episode out with a different quote each time. And the one I picked for your episode is just a really artistic and deep quote. And I thought it was perfect for you because you're so artsy and creative. So I'm going to butcher this philosopher's name, but I think it's Friedrich Nietzsche. I remember learning about him in school, but I don't think I learned ever how to say his name properly.
Same.
So the quote is, throw roses into the abyss and say, here is my thanks to the monster who didn't succeed in swallowing me alive. What does that make you feel?
Gosh, it makes me feel a lot of things when you read that out loud. And, the first thing is just almost running for my life from myself. But, I'm in a 12-step program and there's these little sayings that we say all the time. And one of them is, we die to live. And I think since I've been sober, there's been so many pieces of me in the best of ways that have died so that I could grow and transform. And at the time, so many things felt like I was giving away, throwing the roses, giving away parts of myself I was still really holding on to. But once I did, I started to really grow. And each year has been so different within the recovery, but definitely letting go of past behaviors or, and things that have been haunting me, even in recovery. That's what made me think of it.
Yeah, that was really well said. Yeah, so I love this. He is an existentialist philosopher, and he came up with the idea of self-actualization, which is living to your full potential. And I love that idea. He also worked on self-concept, self-worth, limiting beliefs, and personal freedom. For me, when I hear this quote, I think about being thankful for my addiction. And I know that probably sounds really weird, but it gave me a second chance on life. And it also, in some ways, taught me empathy. I feel like I'm now able to sit in the dark with people and then pull them towards the light, where before I didn't have the, life experience to do that.
No, that's so true. The gratitude is huge. And I definitely lacked empathy before coming into the rooms, right? Because it's all me, myself, and I. So why would I care about how you feel?
So true. So true. Well, I'm so excited to hear your story. So wherever you feel comfortable, just take us back.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, thank you again for having me. It's wild that I never in a million years before getting sober thought that I would be telling how I'm not fucked up anymore, which it's
Right.
wild, what the hell is this? But my story, ever since I was, I feel like a lot of people that in addiction have gotten sober that, I always felt really different. I felt like I didn't fit in. I felt like I was really good at putting on different masks in different situations. I remember at one point before I got sober, I was like, am I a sociopath? Because I was so able to it was almost a survival thing as far as being able to morph in different environments quickly. And I remember feeling just really different. Like I wanted to be seen, but I couldn't be seen. And that was a lot of my childhood, teen, and 20s, just really hiding behind different masks. But my addiction, my first addiction was an eating disorder, and control, super anorexic, and didn't even denied it. Was not trying to be cool, just was something that took my mind off of my surroundings and whatever that hole that I have in my heart that I was trying to fill. And so that continued on. I was in recovery for that, and started doing drugs and smoking cigarettes around 12. Always was drawn to the dark side. Still am, a soft spot for chaos, but it really started to take off, and it's wild, but it really started to take off, my addiction with substances or fast. I am well aware of alcoholism in my life from family structures, and I was always afraid of it, but I stayed really far away from it. But I did do other things like cocaine, and I smoked and pills or whatever, but not alcohol. And I also was anorexic, and I didn't want to gain the weight from the calories of the booze. So that took off a little bit later, but probably in my early 20s, I started to drink. I was 21, just going out, socializing, and eventually the socializing became like an everyday occurrence, every weekend occurrence, and it progressed to the point where I, blacking out, not knowing where I was, getting in trouble, relationships with either partners or friends and family started to be affected by it. My jobs were affected. I couldn't hold a job to save my life unless it was working in a club or a bar. I couldn't show up on time, couldn't sleep, and it just really escalated. But I had trouble admitting that I had issues with it for a really long time. And I think I went to a meeting for recovery and picked up a white chip like 10 years before I actually wanted to get sober. But, it was a lot of lack of acceptance of my genetics, my behavior. And I just was scared to let go of this thing that was, again, filling this hole in my heart. And, I did about a decade of like pretty heavy drug use and pretty heavy drinking. And I always had an excuse of like, it's my anxiety, it's depression. Like, oh, it's because I'm anxious. That's why I acted that way. Like, that's why I drank too much. And it's like, at the end of the day, the problem, it was a symptom of what else was going on up here. And I didn't know that until I got sober. My bottom, so it was kind of, I didn't go to the basement level, but I went to the loading dock, and, it was a lot of testing to see if I really was an addict, alcoholic, because I could stop drinking for 2 months, 3 months. I quit doing drugs, and then it was just drinking because I didn't think that actually qualified because everyone drinks, but not everyone does drugs, right? So I was, playing with that for a long time. Again, for like a decade. And I had worse bottoms before I stopped, really bad bottoms where I was very scared. But the last time I drank, I was humiliated. Like, honestly, I humiliated the shit out of myself. I got kicked out of a bar for starting a fight with someone that actually owned the bar. And then I got kicked out. I fell, and the next day, I almost missed, since when I first started taking photographs, I almost missed one of my first big gigs, and I was so hungover, like terribly hungover, like hallucinating, not a good look, hungover, that it scared me that I was trying so hard to get out of the life that I was living, that I was blowing what was starting for me. That too was like, sorry, back up just a little bit, I had already done that. Like, I went to college, I graduated college, I got accepted to a master's program. I didn't go because I wanted to drink and party and work at a bar instead. Just all these decisions that I made, but I would blame it on something else. All this self-sabotage that led up to this pure embarrassment. I didn't know that I was ready. I don't think I ever would have been like, hey, I'm ready to stop doing this. It was a gradual acceptance for me, like, getting sober. And so it was the last day that I stopped drinking and using. I just told myself I was going to do it for 6 months because I was not ready to actually call it quits. It terrified me. I mean, it was my coping mechanism for pain, anxiety, and stress. It was what I used to celebrate. The thought of like, I didn't even have a boyfriend at the time, but I was like, what am I going to toast with if I get engaged? And, all these thoughts. I traveled a lot. I was highly functioning for a lot of my drinking, highly functioning for my drinking and drug use. I would think, well, how am I going to socialize? How am I going to do this? Like how my whole life surrounded it from it. And so it was really scary to say I was never going to do it again. And, I would always compare to like I never got in trouble when I was traveling. So I was like, well, it's just Atlanta. It's just this, it's just that. Like when I go to like back to Europe, I'll be able to drink again. Like these things that I would tell myself, which it's wild, because I've things actually, you know, bad things had happened when I traveled, but just, I didn't want to admit that at that time. But I think it was made a decision to quit drinking. I didn't go to meetings right away. And I met someone that, I really liked him. And I didn't know you weren't supposed to, it wasn't suggested to get in a relationship with someone in your first year of recovery, but he was, in AA. And I was like, oh, well, I want to be a pro AA person. And so I started going and we broke up. He relapsed. I didn't understand that like being in the program versus being sober for a certain period of time doesn't mean the same thing. So when he was like, I've been in the program for 7 years, well, he's been in it, but he's been in and out of sobriety for 7 years. So I didn't know that. So we had broken up, but at this point, I'd been about 6 months sober and I had did all the things that I was supposed to do, like get a sponsor, start working the steps, and had some clean time, kept going. But I kept going. For me, I'm super competitive. So I kept going, because I was embarrassed, like out of spite. I was like, no one's ever gonna fucking see me like this shit again. Like ever, ever, ever. Like I'm gonna kill life. That was number one. And then number two, the partner that I had, I was like, I'll fucking show you. Like, I'll fucking do this. Like, you're not gonna make me go out. Like, I can do it. And I guess like that drive that I do have, it kept me going until I was able to get a few more years and get some hindsight of like, hey, you really were like, it's not normal that you would do benders and not be available to talk to anyone for 2 weeks at a time, or that you are $30,000 debt with American Express because you decide to buy a plane ticket and go someplace on credits. Like just these things that I was doing, or treat people terribly and lie and cheat and steal, all these things that I was doing. It took me time for my brain, I think, to start healing, to get back to a version of myself, maybe like the childlike version, right? That we once were before, for me, before life started to become lifey. And before I started to come up with these like really interesting, wild ways on how to cope and how to survive in the environments that I was in. And then once I got that time, I got a sponsor, the sponsor that I had, I have a different one now, but, they always say pick someone that you want what they have. Well, I picked her because she had a killer facelift. She had a Gucci bag and drove a Range Rover. I'm like, that's her. I want what she has. Not the serenity, not the peace, not the connection to God. I want that shit though. So thank God for her though, because she saved my life. She saved my fucking life, and she was like the best sponsor, and we ended up having so much in common. She helped me with my photography. She ended up being a fashion designer who's like, she's fucking badass. I had no idea who she was, but I knew she had a Gucci bag. And we kept growing, and I got sober. I did my steps. I started working with others. I started to stop being such a selfish piece of shit. I started to show up for other people besides people in the program, like my parents and friends that have seen me, struggle. And I didn't realize how much of an effect my addiction, mine was kind of, I had like two sets of friends, right? Like some of them saw me like normal. She's great. Like she doesn't have a problem. You're just like us. And the other ones were like, oh no, Alex, like you don't wake up. Like Alex, like we don't know where you went. And then some of them knew that both, all the different levels of friends I would get fucked up with because I kept it separate, like secret. And it also made me feel like I didn't have a problem when I hung out with people that partied just as hard or harder than me. But yeah, I needed that time being sober and getting some type of connection outside of myself, even though I didn't really believe it. I think the hindsight in sobriety helped me stay sober. And now today, I can't imagine my life not having the program that I'm in, the people that are so like, I can't imagine not being sober. Like every once in a while, I won't lie, every once in a while, I will have like almost this like airplane going above the sky moment of like, it'd be really nice to just get really fucked up and like take off and say, fuck it, let's run away. But I don't know if that's just the human experience where we're like, fuck, I give up when like so many things like, pile on. I don't really know if that's an addict thing, an Alex thing, or just like a human thing where you're like, fuck, like I can't do this. So I do have those moments. But I'm not a saint. I love that saying. I'm not a saint. My spirituality has grown so much on most days. Other days, I'm a fucking demon. But at the end of the day, I know for me to drink and to use is to die. And I was going down that road. And I'm grateful that I have the hindsight that keeps me sober. I'm pretty active in a program where I see people that, don't stay close to, something else bigger than themselves, that they end up going back out, taking their own lives, ODing. I've seen it countless times. So I stick really close to working a good 12-step program and working with others and, being honest, open, and willing. And yeah, that's all. I can't imagine my life without it. That's all I got for you. I hope that
Oh
made
my gosh.
sense.
No, it's a beautiful, beautiful story. It's so interesting. We're all energetically connected to consciousness, right? Sometimes you walk into a room and you can tell right off the bat you're not connecting with someone. But I knew I connected with you the second I met you. Our stories are very similar. I also had an eating disorder. That was my first addiction. And I wanted to talk about that because I feel like when you're young and everything's out of control in your life, you control what you can. And food is easy to do that, right? So you restrict because you can control that. Did you have a similar experience with that?
Yeah, 100%. My parents are amazing. Like I'm an only child. They're amazing, amazing people. But they worked really hard putting me, I never went without, but the places that they put me, I was definitely out of my element, like schools. Like I went to very fancy private schools. Like I always felt like I felt weird like to be there. While my parents are working like 3 jobs to like send me there. And, these are like people that have, family crests. Like I know it sounds silly, but it's hard as a kid, you're different, that, this is different. So things like that would not be able to control that was really hard and stressful as a kid. And that which I'm thankful for it now because now I can be comfortable in a country club or a jail. I'm full spectrum. But yeah, there were some things in my life that were family things that were not in my control a lot, and some stress. There was a lot of stress. I think every family origin has issues, especially if you're an addict now. There are some things. And so yeah, things were out of control at times. And it did give me a safe spot to be like, I can control this, even if I can't control where we're moving to, the school that I didn't want to go to, the time period that I grew up in. Girls are really mean. I think that anti-bullying and stuff, or hazing or whatever it is, you had to really be a tough cookie then. I don't know if that was your experience, but it wasn't
Yeah,
mine.
no,
It was brutal. I think they still are.
definitely.
It's just different nowadays.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so I grew up moving all around. So I was constantly the new girl. So that was interesting. I think in some ways it taught me to be extroverted, but being out of control all the time and not having a stable foundation probably led to mine. And then just that, I don't know, I feel like eating disorders are a lot more common than people talk about. If you look at the research, about 1 in 4 women will experience one before she's 21. And that should be talked about more because this can correlate with alcohol use disorder so much. About 50 to 60% of women who have an eating disorder will then develop an addiction later on in life. So we should be intervening earlier with these girls and at least talking about it, maybe in
Yes.
schools. I don't really know how to fix that problem.
I went to an eating disorder therapist. She's the shit. She's amazing. And I'll still touch base with her every once in a while. But she warned me when I was a teenager. She had known from the research that she was doing that most women do develop. It's like filling that void or that hole in these God-sized hole in our hearts with things. She had warned me that I was going to possibly have issues with substances. I was like, no, not me. So you never think you're going to be the one that's going to have a problem, that you're not, when you have one issue, you don't ever think
Yeah.
it's going to be you, that you're going to go to jail, that you're going to mess up your life, that you're going to hurt other people like, I did.
Right. Yeah. And it's one of those addictions, quote unquote addictions it's really hard. I feel like it's lifetime. When I was going through a really hard time last year, I was going through a divorce. I could see the sobriety was good. I wasn't going to drink again, but I could feel the eating disorder coming back to life, and it had been dormant for so long. So that was really scary to have those feelings of wanting to control my food, restrict all of that. How do you feel like you were able to heal your relationship with food?
Mine's just like yours, to be 100% honest honest with you, I think it's a really tricky thing to manage because it's not like we're acting. I mean, we act a little different, right? But maybe a little possessive about what we're eating. Like, no, I'm going to cook or I'm going to do this. Like, we have certain signs. Like my mom always knows. She always knows. And she's always like, "Ugh," and I'm like, I'm fine, but I'm not. She can tell. It's an energy thing, I think, just because she was with me and with it for the entire span of it. But, I had something really stressful. I call it the trauma trim. I, whenever I think something's really stressful, I think, I don't know how you are, but immediately, like, it's hard for me to eat when I am stressed or when things are out of my control. So then once, I almost have a sense of calm, which is so strange. Once I start to shrink, I still have that. And so when that does come up, though, I do talk about it with my sponsor or my therapist, and I'll not overeat, but I'll pray about it and I'll give myself permission. Like the past couple of days, like I could tell I was like, like it was starting to, like if I ask questions like, do I look fat? Like, I'm like, that's a warning sign for me. I'm like, of
Mm-hmm.
course I don't look fucking fat.
Mm-hmm.
But, little things like that, or I'm like grabbing skin, just things. I don't know if you did that. Like there's such
Mm-hmm.
weird, like anorexic eating disorder things of like seeing how, I know it sounds bizarre. You might
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking
yeah,
about.
so I'm just like, oh God, my arms are touching differently, like stuff like that. I'll start to notice that's like old behavior, or like, I'll be like, oh my God, my thigh. It sounds so vain, but it's little things that starts to give me anxiety, like OCD. When those things start to go up, I really pray about it. I talk to someone. I don't keep it a secret. And I give myself permission to like last night I had a steak the night before. I just start to eat a little bit more. And I try to like make sure that I'm eating at least like once a day, like a snake. Just eat
Yeah.
a lot once a day and then, keep going. What do
Like
you
a
do?
snake. Yeah, I mean, so, it's funny what I was going to say earlier is that another reason we're really similar is I'm also extremely competitive with myself. And so I'm an athlete, was a collegiate runner, and now I have this like resurgence of being an athlete in my
Wild.
40s. I just turned 40 last year.
Happy
And
birthday.
so my desire to be an athlete trumps my eating disorder because if I don't eat, I will not run well. I mean, I want to run under a 5 minute mile this year. And like there's no way I can do that if I don't eat. I'm
Yeah.
training for my first Ironman. Like I have to eat. That number one. And number two is I have 3 kids. 2 of them are girls and they're watching me. And last summer we were at the beach and they were very observant. Mommy, you're not eating. Mommy, why don't you eat? Why aren't you eating? And I had this like vision of creating the same problem in my children. And I was like, nope, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And
Yeah.
so I reevaluated it that way.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you some questions about your story. So when I met you, you were telling me that you were a model because I was asking how you got into photography. So you
Yeah.
yourself were a model. Do you feel like being a model kind of played into some of the addiction because it is so prevalent in that world?
I want to say yeah, but no. I think I'm hardwired to be drawn to the dark side. Even people that are like sober or like in my circle, they have a story. They all have grit, like a lot of grit. I'm like, honestly, I mean, I think that's why we connected too, because I honestly, I'm not attracted to people that haven't gone through like some serious shit and that got through it, that they have that edge about them.
Hmm.
Because we can learn from each other, and I'm attracted to that. But I think I was just wired that way, honestly. I think it's hereditary too. My mom was a model. I think that kind of stuff, being thin, my mom's like 6'1" and 130 pounds naturally. But I think the time period I put more pressure on, that was like the Kate Moss and Paris Hilton when she was like, really skinny, like, that time period to look a certain way to be accepted. Yes, but no, the modeling, I think at one point when I was like at my thinnest, my mom did, now that I'm thinking about it, she did have me stop modeling. And I was like, I think I'm 5'9". I think I was like 98 pounds. And so I was like Skeletor. And then I remember actually the modeling, one of my old friends, her sister was a pretty big time model and we ran into her at the mall. I looked up to her. Her name's Audrey. And, I like absolutely loved her and she's still so stunning, but she was so gorgeous. And she was a teenager when I met her when I was a middle schooler again at the mall. And she started crying when she saw me. And it wasn't, and I was just so thin and I'm here delusional and in denial and thinking that I look great. And meanwhile, this woman that I look up to, I think is absolutely gorgeous, and that made me click over. being like, I do have a problem seeing someone that I admired so much tell me that I looked like shit.
I mean, I love how you are openly sober in the world that you're in now because you're in this like fast moving model photographer. When I met you, you just got back from a premiere in New York. I would assume that you are a minority in that space in terms of being one of the few sober people in that arena. Has that been hard for you?
No, it has not been hard for me. I enjoy being sober. It's something that I find as a superpower, super strength, you know. If anything, it's been cool since I do work with a lot of newer models that are just coming into the industry. I have met many more that have been attracted to the lifestyle that I live, and I was able to be of service. So I think it's been more of a positive thing of being open about it. And that's kind of why I am, you know, without being like promoting it, you know, just telling
Mhm.
people what I do and what I used to be like. Cause there are, you know, just like eating disorders, right? You kind of can tell when someone has one, you like see what they're doing. So I think, you know, when I encounter some of the younger models I've met in the past like decade, it's been cool to see them get sober and stay sober. And, you know,
Yeah.
just telling them a little bit more about myself than I would the average Joe. And then the next thing you know it, they're, you know, in a program or they decided to cut back or not, or just not do it at all anymore, whatever journey or whatever road they took. So that it's been more of the other way. Every once in a while it's a little hard, but I love Diet Coke. It's in my veins, you know, so it's okay.
I think you're such a good role model for them because you just exude cool. I don't know how other way to say that. You're just cool, like everything
I
about you. And so for them to see that sobriety can look like you is such a good image for them. And it doesn't have to look like, a dirty church basement with bad coffee. It can look like
I
you,
do
you
like
know?
those places though too.
Yes. Yes. I wanted to ask you about your AA experience. That seems to be your foundation. And I love that. I love a 12-step program. Have you sponsored anyone?
Yes, I have been sponsoring since I was about a year sober, 8 months sober. Once I went through the steps, my first sponsor was like, "You gotta sponsor people." I was like, "No, no." But it's yeah, I sponsor 3 girls right now that I absolutely love, and they help keep me sober. Yeah.
I was curious there. My question for you there, has that been hard because the stats are against most people? Most people will not stay sober. So has that been hard to not like, I guess, have a savior complex?
I think I just get more pissed, honestly, because I'm like, just fucking do it. I
Mhm.
gotta watch it with that, you know, because it's difficult to give people tools and like they've been given to me so freely, right? Just here are your tools and just pick them up and do them. And it's a mental illness, right? It's like we self-sabotage. We're like, no, I don't need that. I know you did that, but that's cool you did that. I'm not going to do it. But I think it's more frustrating. I don't have this savior complex. I'm kind of more of which maybe it sounds like an asshole thing, but I was taught this. It's better them than you in recovery. And I stick with the winners, which is also like I stick with people that work a hard program, tough program, and stick with it. And so I think most my sponsees that I have now, they really work the steps and they come to meetings and they work. And so I don't really work with people that aren't willing to. I can't want it more than they have. So that I eliminate that savior complex. I really wanted this girl to get it. Like I wanted her to have what I had so badly. I was like, just do it. And, you know, she told me, my ex, an ex of mine, like he was back and forth with sobriety. One of the reasons why we broke up, but I had to be the lighthouse on land, right? I had to stay where I was and just like shine the light, not jump in and get them. Because then I won't be there for anybody else in my life. B, I risk my own sobriety. Um, and, yeah, I gotta just stand strong. And so someone told me that, and after that, I'm like, I'm the lighthouse. I'm the lighthouse. I'm the lighthouse.
I'm a metaphor girly. Like, that is awesome. I am going to use that all the time. I'm the
Yes,
lighthouse.
I'm the fucking lighthouse.
So, going through the steps, I went through the steps my first year. What was the hardest step for you?
I think continually admitting that I am powerless over alcohol in my life would become manageable always. But, I use the steps and other things in my life, so the steps just give me a framework for living. These are a lot of things that don't come from Alex or things that have been repeated to me over and over. The framework for living is truly what it is. And so, I'm powerless over relationships, over people, places, and things. The only thing that I have power over is my connection with God and like making a conscious decision to either feed the bad dog, which I say, or the good dog, which is like either do the next right thing or do things that are possibly put you, in harm's way or, fuel that part of you that's going towards like the dark side. But that it's hard. Every day I wake up as a raging alcoholic. I have to have moments where I do my prayers and admit that I'm powerless. I literally could get hit by a bus today. Everything I love could literally be, all these thoughts that I have, I have honestly no control over them. So that one was the hardest one for me to admit that. And it is still hard for me to admit that over certain people, places, and things.
Yeah, that
What
was
about
my
you?
hardest step too.
Yep, those are your hardest two twins.
Yep, and that's the first step. So, I wanted to ask you about your spirituality. Were you a spiritual person before recovery, or did that grow? Did that spiritual relationship mature in recovery?
I mean, I think I was like an a la carte spirituality person. So, the only times I would really ever talk to God was when on like a cocaine bender on like the third or fourth, fifth, sixth day where my heart was coming out of my chest. And I'd be like, dear God, please, I will never touch this ever again if I don't die. Like stuff like that. Or dear God, please let me make, $500 at the bar tonight so I can pay my rent and don't get kicked out. Like stuff like that. When I was a little girl, I have like very vivid things as far as like, thinking and feeling that like something else was out there. And I was only child too. So, I mean, I was talking to myself a lot. So I think that, I was really connected with like animals and like nature. And I was lucky that I grew up in a time where I could run around. And I did have one really close girlfriend. Her name's Nikki, that we would play together all the time. And we're still friends and just being spiritual in that sense with like animals and things like that in nature. But my spirituality now, I mean, I've learned the hard way. I think that's the only way that this addict alcoholic learns, even now, that if I don't make a connection with God in the morning and throughout my day, and my God of my understanding, that I have a really shit day. I'm a dick. I'm an asshole. Like I'm impatient. I'm irritable. I'm discontent. If I'm rushing, like I have to give myself, if I have to be supposed at 7, I got to wake up at 6 to have that extra hour. Or I'm going to choose to be late so I can have that moment of like, a quick meditation, reading in my daily devotionals that I have and saying, hey, thanks for waking me up. But I talk to God all the time. I do
Yeah.
throughout the day. I don't even notice it anymore. I'm just always, and I'm talking to God. And I think that I also read this really good book called Conversations with God when I first got sober. If you haven't read it, it's like 10 out of 10. But it's a book about a real life experience of this guy that starts to talk to God, and God through his consciousness starts to talk back, and he writes it down. So it's literally like an interview with God, and it's changed my perspective on who I'm talking to. But yeah.
I love that. I'm a big reader, so I'm gonna definitely buy that.
You'll love it. You'll love it. There's 3 of them, but one of them was like really, really fire. Like the first one. It's
Okay.
a white book. It's fire.
Okay, I'm gonna get it.
Okay. Yes.
If you were able to time travel and go back, knowing what you know now, what if you were able to go back to your childhood, your early, addiction years? What would you tell that girl right now?
You know what's so wild? Like, I'm so thankful for where I am. Nothing.
Yeah. Brings it back to that quote, doesn't it?
Yep. Nothing.
Yeah.
There's not a single damn thing. I'm so grateful for the traumas.
Mm-hmm.
The traumas and everything. I really don't regret it. I don't know, maybe be kinder. At certain times in my life, I wasn't as kind as I would have liked to have been. But I don't think if I would have told myself then as a little girl what I know now, I wouldn't have listened to myself anyways. I would have been like, fuck you, I'm going to do what I want.
Same. I was the most stubborn ever. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, over the last 7 years, what do you feel like has been the hardest challenge? Like for me, it was learning. I always want to escape. I want to escape situations all the time mentally. And so learning how to have healthy escapism was the hardest challenge for me. What about for you?
I think sitting through pain. Yeah, it's the same. I mean, I think us addicts, we don't like to feel. I don't like to feel. I like to feel really happy. I also sometimes I like to feel really sad though. So I take that back. Like I love sometimes a good pity party for Alex. I know now not to stick there, but I do like, why? I don't do it as much, but I early recovery, like I don't know why it's not working. And my response was like, well, bitch, you're not working the fucking steps. Like go to a meeting. Like it's not the meetings, just stuff like that. It's not me, it's everybody else. But I think, God, sitting through the pain still, I've fluctuated, right now, currently, I put all my pain into my work. I put my rage and resentments that I have, and I ball it up in a little ball, and I just put it to something productive. Because again, I'm not a saint. I still have feelings. I still am learning how to best respond as an adult, a functioning adult. So I'm better than I was, but I think sitting through the pain has been some of the one of the first things someone told me to do is sit through the pain, and more will be revealed. And one of the first things when I first got sober, and it's still one of the hardest things for me to do, is sitting through that discomfort.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
relate to that. And to add to that, to what you were saying, is to sit through the emotion, right? I would constantly be afraid of my emotions. Oh, I'm feeling anxious. I need to escape this right now. But instead, riding that wave of that emotion and knowing that emotion isn't going to kill you, you're just going to ride the wave and it's going to go away. I was just terrified to feel anything. I don't know.
same. But it's again like the airplane analogy. It's like it just goes over. It's gonna pass. Just like happy times are gonna pass. I think that too. Like with the hindsight of staying sober is like we don't know that they're gonna pass without that crutch until whether it's the eating or the drugs or the drinking. We don't have that awareness. And at that moment, even today, like I still am like, it's not gonna pass. I'm always gonna be this sad.
If you had to pick one habit that keeps you sober 7 years in, what is that one habit?
Praying.
Yeah.
And being honest,
Ooh,
even when I
that's
don't
good.
want to be.
That's a
Yeah.
really good one. Honest with yourself and honest with others, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, we have made it to the lightning round of our episode. So I asked the same 5 questions to each guest because my listeners get really invested in who you are. And so they want to know more. So the first question is, you're given 3 options. Would you shark dive, bungee jump, or skydive?
I've already skydived, so probably shark jump.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. All right. You're in a simulation. Every time you walk into a room, the same song plays. What's your song?
No, I don't even know. What was yours?
I mean, I'm a big Swiftie, so it would be like Out of the Woods or something like that.
Okay. Probably We Will Rock You by Clint.
That is a great one. I'm a cheer coach, and we did our routine to that for Cheer Bowl.
Good song.
Such a good
You
song.
remember they used to say Bandit at sporting events because people get too wild with
Really?
the stopping?
That's
Yeah,
so
they weren't allowed
funny.
to play it at hockey games because people would go ape shit.
So funny. I mean, it makes you want to rage, you know?
Oh yeah, I think that would be my song. It's fitting.
I love how you said in the episode you have a soft spot for chaos.
I do. It's awful.
You need to frame that. That should be like on your resume.
Okay, I should.
All right, number 3. What is your favorite Disney movie? I'm like Barbara Walters over here.
I go, let's see. Probably Beauty and the Beast because I always fall in love with the Beast.
Such a good one. It's such a good one. But then he turns into a prince
I
at the
know
end.
that hasn't happened yet for me, but we'll figure it out.
He's not come into your life yet. Yet is the key word. Number 4. What is something you're obsessed with?
Work
You're very good at it.
and Botox. I'm obsessed with Botox. Anything that makes me not age, I'm obsessed with that. So
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah.
work.
Yeah. Your work is amazing. I mean, you're super talented, number 1, but you can tell you're very passionate about it and that you actually love what you do because not everyone loves what they do, you know?
You know what it is though? I forgot to mention that. I do, but it keeps me sober. So it's like a connection thing. Like I'm able to connect with people regularly. And there's a saying in recovery too, like the opposite of connection is disconnection. And disconnection is usually you're disconnected from yourself, from others when you're in active use. So I think the connection aspect of why I'm so passionate about it too, because I get to connect with all these humans and get to know them at like a really vulnerable time in their lives. They all have a story, like we get to know each other within that hour and a half time period. I get to really know who you are, and I enjoy that very much so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, I love that. And you get to meet so many people
yes,
doing
it's
what you
great.
do.
Yes,
That's
and make
awesome.
them feel pretty and hot and like good
Mhm.
about themselves. Like that's the best.
You made me feel like I was a model, and I'm literally 5'1". I
You are
could
a
never
model.
be a model. But that
But
day
it's
you sent them,
embarrassing.
I was walking with my shoulders higher, like I am a Vogue model.
And that's why I really love what I do. It's a
Mhm.
sober thing, a God thing, honestly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. All right, last question, number 5. What does freedom mean to you?
Not having the weight of myself, honestly, of me.
Yeah.
That's freedom.
That's a
Also money.
beautiful-
Money is freedom too. I've
Yeah.
learned that the hard way, but self is the biggest weight. And when I get out of my own head and out of my own way and third party Alex, have you done that yet? Like done like
Mm.
third party, like making decisions for me without thinking the emotions involved. That's a big freedom. Like getting rid of the ego, probably the biggest thing.
Yeah, I love that. They say addiction is the only prison where the locks are on the inside, you know?
It's very true.
Yep, we're free.
Very
We're
true.
free of it all.
We're
I
free.
can't thank you enough for
Thank
coming
you. This
on.
has been so great. I'm
Yes.
seriously, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I needed this, so I appreciate you. Thank you.
Yeah. It's cathartic to tell your story, but your story can help so many people. I mean, people may not track with every single thing or been through something the exact same way you have, but there's parts of your story that are similar to someone. And
Yes.
the cool thing is that to see you now on this side of it, that's what gives people hope.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yes. All right, girl. I can't wait to see all the awesome things you do. You're going places, and I'm excited to see it.
Thank you so much for
All right,
having me.
bye.
All right. Bye, friend.